Chapter 6. Who is Pavel? The old man drank some water and looked up.
Pavel, he said, I must ask you to look at this photo.
He put his hand in his pocket and took out a photograph of a young woman.
Do you know this woman?
Yes, said Pavel. That's a photo of my mother, Lenka. She died when I was very young. But my grandmother had many photos of her, and we often looked at them.
Did you live with your grandmother when you were young?
Yes, I did. But how do you know all this?
Because, said Joseph, Lenka was my wife.
Dad, what are you saying? Said Jan. Joseph looked at Jan.
My boy, don't be angry with me. I didn't tell you many things about your mother. Perhaps I was wrong, but I wanted to forget. Not to forget your mother, only to forget that terrible night in 1957.
Jan, this man, Pavel, is your twin brother. You can see that it's true. Look at your faces. Pavel looked at Jan. So, I have a brother, he said. My grandmother never told me that. Jan smiled. And my father, our father, never told me about a twin brother. He turned to Joseph. Dad, why didn't you tell me?
It's a long story, said the old man. It begins many years ago, when a young man went to Prague University. He was there for 7 years, and in his last year he met a beautiful young woman. His eyes turned to the photo. She was so beautiful. Of course, the young man fell in love with her, and they got married in 1956. But things were difficult in Prague then. People were not happy, and they were not free. Lenka and I, and a lot of our friends, wanted to change things, but it was dangerous work. The Russians knew about us, and they watched us all the time. Then you 2 boys were born on a wonderful day in June 1957.
But you went away, Pavel said angrily. Your wife died, and you left the country. You went away to England and began a new life. You didn't write. You didn't telephone. You weren't interested in me, your son. Joseph's face was very sad.
Pavel,
he said, I thought you were dead.
Look, I must show you something.
From behind the photo of his wife, he took out a letter and gave it to Pavel. The letter was old and yellow. Pavel opened it and began to read. The letter was in Czech, and it was his grandmother's writing. I write to tell you, Joseph, that your wife is dead. On Christmas night, the guards shot her on the road at the border. She carried Pavel, your baby son, and my grandson.